If you own a firearm in Hawaii, or you'd like to, or you just believe in the Second Amendment, this is a show for you to watch. We're going to talk all about firearms laws in Hawaii and what's being proposed at the Hawaii legislature. I want to welcome my two guests, Dr. Max Cooper, who's certainly been a well-known spokesperson for Second Amendment rights in Hawaii, and Carrie, who's also a firearms shooter, a firearms instructor and shooter. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
So.
Dr. Cooper, why don't you tell us about what's going on at the legislature? You started off this session saying it was going to be one of the worst for firearms owners, or at least it was in terms of what was introduced. Where are we at right now?
There were numerous very onerous restrictive bills that didn't make sense, really, and I characterized it as the worst in statehood that I'd seen, and I've been doing this for about 25 years. We're ecstatic. All the horrible bills are dead, and there are several bills left that we like. There are good reasons for that. First of all, some very supportive legislators who really allow their Second Amendment support to come out publicly, including Senator Sam Sloan, Ken Ito, Representative Ken Ito, and Sharon Har, Representative Sharon Har, have been helping us understand better the process down there and what we need to do to survive this year. And that's been very helpful. And then the whole firearms community, everybody, not just the Hawaii Rifle Association, but all kinds of groups and just individuals have realized how threatened they are as far as their Second Amendment rights go, and they've come out and supported by the hundreds. We've had more people testifying, more people down at the legislature, more people talking to their legislators. And the fence city legislatures, or the legislators who appreciate Second Amendment rights, have responded to that, and they've stopped everything bad that was happening.
Hawaii has among the toughest regulations in the country, and as you mentioned, tougher laws were proposed this year. But maybe we can talk a little bit about what Hawaii laws are, and then we can go into a little bit more about what exactly was proposed and what still good remains that people, in your view, people could go and support to help strengthen Second Amendment rights in Hawaii. We know that Hawaii the people here believe in Second Amendment. There's a high number of firearms ownerships in Hawaii in terms of, I think it's over 1 million registered firearms.
Million registered is the Attorney General's figure, and they estimate about 20% of households have a firearm. And I think that's an underestimate. Nationally, it's close to 50%, 48% on a time poll this year. And I think a lot of Hawaiians aren't going to answer the phone and say, yeah, I've got a gun.
I think we must be higher, because if you're talking about only 1.3 million people in Hawaii and 1 million registered firearms, and from what I understand from you, I believe, if you had a firearm before 94, you don't have to register. You didn't have to register it, or what is the law?
Long guns didn't have to be registered until 94. That was shotguns and rifles. But you know, there's some of us who have a big collection, and some of us who have none. But we've seen people down there this year who have no firearms at all, who are just supportive of the Second Amendment.
Okay, you're not telling me you have 1 million, right?
No.
Okay, just checking. You have enough, but not 1 million. Okay.
I'm a collector.
Okay. Well, Carrie, tell me, how did you personally get involved in caring about the Second Amendment, about becoming a shooter? Can you tell us a little bit about your background and also what you've seen at the legislature this year?
You know, I'm not a very large person, and being female makes it a little more difficult. And I had gone with my boyfriend to take some self-defense courses. And what we'd always find is, regardless of what I do, it's still, if someone's 6 foot and 225 pounds or more, whatever, and comes at me, the ability for me to defend myself physically would be very difficult. And so he suggested that I learn to shoot a gun, because he felt that would be the best way to protect myself. And I signed up for some lessons, and I learned from lessons in firearms education, life, and I became an instructor, because I really started seeing that it's something great for women to learn, to be able to protect themselves. What I found with a lot of my friends is that they believe someone will be there to protect you, someone will save you. But too many times you'll find you are home alone. Even if you live with other people, there is that moment. And when a criminal comes in, you're not going to have the time to say, I should have, could have, and would have. I'd rather be able to say I did, and that I was able to protect myself. And that's why I've become such a strong supporter. I would see in the class a lot of women that were afraid and had been there because their husbands or significant others had suggested they take the course. And in the end of the course, it's a full-day course. It meets the Hawaii Revised Statutes requirements of purchasing a firearm. And at the end of the day, they realize it's not what they thought it was going to be, that firing a gun is not that scary, horrible thing. It takes a lot of the mystery out of it. And they bring their families now, and that's what we're seeing a lot of in the class. I've been teaching now with Life since I became an instructor in 2009, and the ratio of women in class has dramatically increased. There are a lot more younger. They bring their children, their families. We can have 13-year-olds and above taking the course, and we found there's a lot. We've had students who are in high school that can write on a topic of their choice, that have decided that learning about the Second Amendment is a good option, and they've come to the class to be educated. And it's a fantastic course. It teaches you a lot about safety. It focuses on that, and it gives you the hands-on opportunity to shoot the firearm. And the whole goal is to stress safety and get the people to understand how to handle a firearm. And it's a great course, and that's why I became involved. And I'm not as much of an enthusiast about firearms so much as I am an enthusiast about the ability to protect myself, and that it's my right, it's my Second Amendment right. And I'm American, I have that, and luckily, and I cannot ever see that being taken away from me. And we're just lucky that we have so many people that are there in our legislature that are strongly fighting for us, like Senator Sloan, like Representative Hart, like Representative Ito, and many of the others. And Dr. Cooper has been tireless in these years of really being out there for us, and I don't think people understand how much work and effort it takes. And it's not, you're right, it's not the Hawaii Rifle Association, it's all of us, because the legislators need to understand what their constituents feel. And so we have to be more vocal, we have to be proactive and contact them and educate them and let them know why you feel it's important for you to have this right, and that the ability to have a firearm is an amazing choice that we as Americans have.
There's another thing that we see at the classes too. We see new shooters come out who are sometimes trembling at the idea of actually firing a gun. And then besides finding out that it's a useful tool and they can be safe with it, they find out that shooting is fun.
It is. It's a good stress reliever.
It is.
If you poll Americans, the majority with firearms will tell you they own them for recreational reasons, for plinking, informal target shooting, and for hunting. But then if you ask them, well, are they okay for self-defense too? And they say, oh yeah, they're good for that too.
A lot of people in Hawaii hunt, and it seems like, especially on the neighbor islands. And also, so do you see, when people come down to the legislature, do you see a lot of hunters, or is it recreational people, or is it the people that just are firm believers in the Second Amendment, or kind of a whole wide variety of people?
Well, Hawaii Rifle Association and the National Rifle Association both feel that supporting public hunting and legitimate hunting, ethical hunting, is a very important part of their goals and their responsibilities. So we look at hunting bills and we promote public hunting within the state, and the National Rifle Association does that nationally, as do a lot of other groups.
Definitely in the neighbor islands, people really do hunt to support their families, to bring food for their families and for their neighbors and so on. They hunt and they fish, and it's just a local way of life.
And it has been since we were hunter-gatherers on the plains of Africa.
That's true. That's true. You think, oh, we have small islands, and but there are quite a lot of opportunities, especially in the neighbor islands with deer and pig hunting.
There's a lot of hunting here that a lot of people don't know about.
That's right.
Visitors come over and say, what, you have hunting in December?
Yes, exactly. Bird hunting and deer and goat and all kinds of things. Mouflon.
We actually got a law passed that allowed those people to get a hunting license with a special course, even if they'd forgotten their hunter safety education certificate.
So there's a lot of opportunity to hunt, and also basic people for, like you said, recreation. So down at the legislature, I know there was a gun appreciation day. What was that turnout like, and what did you see come out of that?
I think the newspaper reports that I saw estimated there were about 300 people down there. And they were just from all over the gun committee out there with T-shirts and signs, waving and out to cars and getting honks back. So it was just a support that was filmed and presented by the media, and I'm sure impressed the legislature. We're about the size of a HGEA rally down
The
there.
Hawaii Government Employees Association.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So in terms of Hawaii's laws, we're among the strictest in the nation, and maybe one of you or both of you could share with me what you think, explain what are the Hawaii laws, and why do we have such strict laws here? What are they what makes it so strict?
People say that we're about third strictest in the nation. I think that's about right. We're second in terms of the thickness of the statutes and the restrictiveness. And some of it's too restrictive, but it's tight to own a firearm here in Hawaii. It's difficult to acquire one. That's because probably of our population demographics here. 2/3 of our voters are Asian, and in their cultures for centuries, common people were disallowed weapons. They weren't allowed to have them, and it was punishable by death. And they're always, well, generally the older generations anyway, are very cooperative with their government. They trust their government. They'll follow whatever their government says. So that's part of it. And that has contributed to a low crime rate in Hawaii. We're one of the exceptions. Strict gun laws and a low crime rate. So there's not the need to arm yourself. But that's changing. Our demographics are changing. And you can see by the lines down at the registration desk at HPD that a lot of people feel now a need to acquire a firearm.
You know, we've had the prosecutor on here before, different prosecutors over the years, and they say the same thing about, well, we have a low crime rate. But to me, even one crime, if you can prevent even one crime from happening with your firearm, that makes it. I mean, that's the point, right? We want to start lowering it even lower. It's not low enough. It's low enough when there is no crime.
The crime rate of violent attacks can be calculated based on Hawaii averages. And there's pretty good statistical evidence from studies done on the issue that you'll reduce the number of rapes, murders, and serious assaults, maiming, hospital trips significantly each year if you have a larger percentage of people who own firearms privately.
And unfortunately, you don't hear enough in the media about those situations where people actually use firearms to defend themselves and to protect themselves. You hear a lot of the sensational stories about the bad use and the bad things that happen, but there are a large number of times that a firearm is used and not even fired, just the presence of it has deterred, stopped, prevented.
Most of the time, 95%, the gun is simply, maybe not even produced, just acknowledge that I have a gun.
And
okay.
You don't hear about those in
They
the
don't
news.
make
They're
the
not
newspapers.
sensational.
They don't get on television. I think Professor Gary Kleck, he's a criminologist at Florida State, published a book called Point Blank, and his research estimated that Americans use firearms defensively in that matter, almost always without firing them even, 1.5 million times a year.
That's quite a bit.
That's a lot.
But we don't hear
Averages-
about that, like you said, in the media,
don't.
so it's really hard to know that that's happening. We only hear about the bad things that take place with firearms.
That averages out for you and me about once in a lifetime, and sometimes it is a lifetime.
That's right.
And it's unfortunate because there's so much media play about the negatives and the bad things that happen that people focus on that. People that are not knowledgeable, that are not really aware of firearms, they automatically knee-jerk reaction and say, oh, see, it's so bad, that awful thing, without the opposite side. The media doesn't, because it's not sensational, it's not exciting to say, well, you know, this person had to use it to defend their family at home, or you know, we just heard about one the other day about a 14-year-old girl who was home and she was homesick from school, and she called her mother because she saw someone trying to get into the house. It was a man. And her mother said, run upstairs, get into the closet, and take out the .40 caliber. but she had taught her children about gun safety. They knew about it, they understood, and she was able to prevent that attack from occurring. So, there's so many instances you just don't hear about it.
That's right, that's right. Now, let's go a little bit into Hawaii law. Hawaii law, we are a may issue state rather than a shall issue state, meaning that our police chiefs, our 4 police chiefs can issue you a permit to have concealed carry or open carry.
They can, but they choose not to. Ever since Nakamura took office, before that, citizens could apply for a permit to acquire and get one based on need. But it still may issue, but they just don't.
So for decades now, really, people have not been able to get a concealed carry permit.
Correct. Most people you talk to in Hawaii say, well, we don't need concealed carry here, but especially law enforcement and prosecutors. That's because I think they only take care of scumbags with guns. They don't know how to trust law-abiding gun owners. In Washington State, where I live in the summer times, we have a summer residence there. My wife and I both have a concealed carry permit for Washington State and about 22 other states because they reciprocate. I carry every day.
Now, speaking of that, other states, how many other states have concealed carry? It's quite a few now. Is it 46?
I think it's 46. Of course, you count Hawaii in there because we do have
That's true.
permit process.
Okay.
We just don't get
45.2 states.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are about 46 shall issue states. They've been increasing ever since Florida and Texas kind of broke the ice.
Well, Hawaii is so restricted that even allowing our retired police officers was a challenge here. When the federal law mandated that we do that, it took a long time for our Attorney General to put in place the laws that would allow, the regulations that would allow them to get the permit after they retired. So we don't even trust our own law enforcement.
It's still difficult for them to do that. It's very expensive and restrictive for them. It's improved. Part of the problem is that many of the leadership in our government in law enforcement and higher levels of government like the chief police, they don't want citizens to have firearms. And in fact, it's sort of unwritten policy for many years, since World War II perhaps, that acquiring a firearm in Hawaii personally should be somewhat humbug.
Well, it certainly is humbug, by the way. I was just going to bring that up. Okay, so if you get I know there's 2 different things, a long gun and a handgun in terms of what you have to do, what you have to go through. But will one of you just walk me through, why do you have to wait in line so long? Why does it take multiple visits to the police department to get a permit for your handgun, and to get it registered? If one of you could just kind of walk people through it who haven't been through this, or at least haven't been through this recently.
There are different permits for different rules for long guns and for handguns. For long guns, you just go to the police department, and once a year, it's good for a year, you apply for a permit, you wait 2 weeks, you can pick up your permit. That permit then is good to buy as many long guns as you would like, but with each long gun you purchase, you have to go back to the police department, stand in line, and register your gun. For a handgun, you have to take a course, which is required by the Hawaii Revised Statutes, and that was one of the courses. One of the people that offer that is the Lessons in Firearms Education, and there are certain requirements as far as time. You need to cover the Hawaii laws as well as provide time for shooting, live fire. And once you get the affidavit saying that you attended that class, then you can go to a gun shop, pick out the handgun you would like, purchase it. Then you take the paperwork. You can't take the handgun. You take the paperwork to HPD. You can register the gun, apply for the permit, wait 2 weeks, go back, get the permit, go back to the gun store, show them the permit. They give you more paperwork. They give you the firearm. Now you go back to HPD, and then you register the gun at HPD. So for a handgun, it entails 3 visits to the police department. That's why when you can see how many times you need to return, you can see why there are so many people in line to have to be there just to purchase one firearm.
Now, I've heard of, I did actually a story in Hawaii Reporter about 9 hours people were waiting in line. They were coming at midnight. They were waiting until in the morning. They were camping overnight. They had to, if they have to use the bathroom, there's no bathroom. If they have to park, there's nowhere to park, and they end up getting tickets, or it's quite an event to get a permit.
Starting with the primary elections, probably, was assured that Mr. Obama was going to run again, there was an impetus to buy firearms because it was anticipated, as has resulted, that there's going to be a lot of threats to your ability to earn, to own especially firearms, certain firearms like so-called assault weapons, semi-automatic look-alike firearms. So the lines down there have increased. They're doing about 70 permits a day now for new guns. You can only go to the main station, the Beretania Police Station on this island, and on the other neighbor islands, only the main station. They've reduced their hours down here. They used to be 7:30 to 4, and now they're 7:45 to 3 p.m. is when they close the doors, because they can only process about 10.5 people per hour, and that's how many they can get into the lobby. So they shut the door, and if you're still in line, you're gone. So people, I tripped over a man who was sleeping in a sleeping bag outside the front door of the HPD headquarters at about 4 in the morning when my son and I went down there, and the guy second behind him said he's been here since midnight.
So we hear these stories, and there's a gun forum, I think, gun registration forum that talks about how long the lines are. I understand it's getting a little bit better.
It's about an hour and a half.
About an hour and a half.
But as
now.
she said, you're going to go down there 3 different times and stand in line 3 different times. And there's more to it than that even. Not only the hour is restrictive and you only can go to one place, it's during business hours. You have to take off from work. You have to find a babysitter. Then, when you get down there, you better have brought your picture ID. You better have brought $16.50 exact change in cash if you've never bought a gun in Hawaii before, because that's the FBI fingerprint fee, because they're going to fingerprint you. You're going to sign 2 releases, one that says you're not a criminal, you don't have a mental illness background. If you lie about that, that's a Class C felony. Who you are, where you live, your eye color, hair color, I have a problem with that. All that identifying material. And then they ask you, who's your doctor? And you are required, if you have a doctor, to supply the name and address and phone number of your doctor or the clinic where you get your treatment done. And then you're going to sign a release of medical information to that doctor. So what does HPD do with that? They send your doctor a letter saying, we're going to give this person a permit to get a gun in 2 weeks unless we hear anything bad from you about their mental health status. So the physician can ignore it, but any kind of a response, bedwetting when you were 12 is the worst example I know of, then you're denied and you have to prove that you're okay to get it. So you don't get your permit then, you come back in 2 weeks. If you don't pick it up within 10 days after the 2 weeks, you start all over again.
So people who say that Hawaii's laws are not strict enough haven't probably been through this process.
They have never tried to acquire a firearm in Hawaii.
Right. Well, what were some of the proposals that really worried you this year? Can you briefly sum those up? And in terms of, you were saying it was one of the worst years, or Carrie, if you want to jump in there, and how did, maybe you can give a brief response as to why they were bad, because people a lot of times they'll hear in the news media this bill was proposed and people say, oh, that sounds reasonable, but maybe you can give us a couple of examples of some of the laws that were proposed that failed but that were of concern.
Sure. Probably the most significant one, as far as the debate that went on over it down at the Capitol, was the proposal for mental background checks. There was going to be a list made of everyone in Hawaii who is not considered suitable to own firearms. The public safety people were going to keep that list, and physicians had to report their mental health patients to the list, and they would be put on it and be unable to get firearms. And the penalty for failure to report by a physician was going to be a Class C or B or A felony. It wasn't determined yet.
That sounds like a communist government there.
It reminded me of 1939 in Nazi Germany.
Yes,
actually.
Nazi Germany.
We will
exactly.
have lists.
Yes,
And
yes.
if you do not cooperate, we have ways to deal with you.
Okay, I won't even say communist. Worse than that, right?
It was fascism.
Yeah, fascism. Yeah.
And it's not the fault of the legislature, Sonis. The way this happens, the Brady campaign and other anti-gun people nationally come up with these boilerplate laws, and they circulate them to all state legislatures. And to the uninformed, that sounds like a pretty good idea. Those people shouldn't really have guns anyway. Well, when you analyze it, the psychiatrists came down and they testified, you're going to keep people who are mentally ill from seeing us and getting their medications for fear that they're going to lose their firearms rights. Which would you rather have?
And plus, if you're seeing a psychologist or a psychiatrist, you might not be mentally ill. You might just need some kind of counseling. So.
You have situational depression. As a physician, I used to see people who'd been denied. Most of it was driving under the influence, and you just had to go take the how to drive sober classes and stay sober, and then you could get a letter from a physician like me that said no longer adversely affected. But I saw some people who were denied to start with because, like a gentleman had a history with Kaiser of depression because he lost his job, his 12-year-old died, and he lost his house.
I think he's entitled to
30
be
years ago.
depressed.
So he went to 2 group therapies, was
Yeah.
feeling better, and he just didn't go back. And the last recorded note in his records at Kaiser said, did not return. So, denied.
Oh.
And the bedwetting guy, when he was 12, he was treated in a mental health clinic for that. And the police don't make diagnoses, so it's not their fault that they have to deny you. And so the system is pretty tight as it is, and sometimes it needs improvement.
All right, so for people who want to, we only have a minute and a half left in the show, but for people who want to come to your life class, your lessons in firearms education class, tell us how they can do that. And then Max, I'll ask you to tell us about your website where people can get more information and how they can join your organizations.
You can go to www.lifehawaii.com, and on that website you can see the classes that are listed. Please register early. We are booked at least a month in advance right now. It is incredible, and we are lucky. We have a great group of volunteers. No one is paid on the Life group. We are all volunteers, and we've been lucky enough that we have a lot of instructors and can take more than the normal class load, but it's not a given, so register early.
And what is the
What's the
cost for
fee?
that?
The cost is $120, but beginning in June, we are raising it because of the cost of ammunition, because it's just been going up. And because you shoot for 2 hours all of the various types of guns, from a .22 caliber all the way up to a .45.
So that covers your ammunition, your guns, and the books that are provided.
The materials, yes.
And your affidavit that you'll be
And
leaving
the
with.
affidavit that, you don't leave
Oh,
with
you
it.
don't leave with it,
Because
okay.
we have to get it notarized.
Okay.
So you do get an affidavit sent to you after the class. And you also get a 1-year membership with the Hawaii Rifle Association, which allows you to also come to the monthly fun shoots where you can improve your shooting skills practice, because it's not, you have to maintain your skills in order to be able to use it when you need it.
Max, just give us your website and how people can get involved with your organization.
HawaiiRifleAssociation.org. You can find a membership application there online. And there's another organization we should mention, and that's the Hawaii Citizens' Rights Political Action Committee. It's the only political action committee in this state that supports your gun rights, and there's a donation form on the HRA website as well.
All right, well, thank you for joining us. It's been a fast show. We'll have to have you on again so we can get more information. But please, people out there, pay attention to what's going on with your legislature and check out these websites and get involved in your community. This has been News Behind the News. Thank you for joining us. Aloha.